The other day I went to a silent auction. I got 2 dog whistles and a mime. Hey kids, Adam here. Today we're doing a follow-up on my Audient EVO 16 unboxing. Card up on the top for that video. I was going to do a review on this, and actually somebody asked me to do a review on this. And then over the past couple months, everybody and every channel has been doing a review. There's literally dozens and dozens of reviews out there. Most of them probably got a free or a demo model from Audient. Now, I'm not a giant channel. I wish I was, maybe. I am trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, so if you could hit the subscribe button, that would do me a big favor. If you want to really help out, share this video to someone else and say, hey, go subscribe to this guy's channel, even if you don't know anything about mixing a Reaper or a bass or anything, dad jokes or anything that I'm doing. The more the better. Hoping to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It is January. It is November 27th at the time that I am recording this. It will go out in the next couple days, depending on how long it takes me to edit. So what I decided to do is, instead of an all-out review, and I will go through some of the features of this thing, I'm going to do a comparison of like why and a reason why I left my interface and left the what was the Steinberg UR-RT4, and why did I look to get a different interface. So in that video, I did mention a couple of problems I was having with the Steinberg, and that's kind of why I went. I actually had an RME, a small little guy. I don't know the exact model number. It was expensive. It was like $1,600. It only had 2 analog inputs in the front. Now I could have added on more through like an ADAT and another piece of hardware, but I figured, you know what? I never use 3 inputs. I do need 3 inputs. I need one for my mic. I need one for my bass DI and my tone hammer DI. And I also need one just a straight direct into the interface that I split off using a Countryman DI for recording and things if I take something off the pedal board or something like that. But I never need both bass inputs at the same time that I use my mic. I only need both bass inputs when I'm doing recording, and I never use my mic at the same time I'm recording. So I figured 2 were fine at that point, and if I did need something else, I could always buy something else. But then a couple days later, this Audient big announcement came out for it. I immediately canceled the order of the RME for $15.99, and I placed the order with the Audient for $4.99. Those are US dollars. Now, what's funny is the Steinberg was $5.99 when I bought it. I don't know the prices now. If it's changed, I'll put something up on the screen somewhere. So I'm technically upgrading to a new interface that's $100 cheaper. Now, I kind of went through a little bit in that video of why I think this is. I think Audient's making a breakthrough here, and I think there will be a lot of interfaces coming out in the next few years at this price point. Audio just happened to do it first. I've heard they have amazing drivers that are rock solid, so I decided to take a jump with it and go for it. And here I am. Here I have it. So I will have a little camera down here. Let's say hi, camera. With both of my interfaces on that I can show. You could see the Steinberg has 4 inputs on the front. It has 2 in the back. The EVO only has 2 in the front, but it has 6 in the back. So if I ever need to take this and record drums at like my practice place or my drummer's house, could have used another ADAT connection or something on the Steinberg, but I wasn't really planning on ever doing drums with this. Not that I'm planning on with the Audient either, but just in case we do have it. Features, the Steinberg has these cool Neve transformer preamp things. We're going to get into that in a little bit of what that really means, or if it does mean anything. Spoiler alert. And I just like the way it laid out. I like the fact that there were 1 volume knob for output, 1 for each headphone, even though I very, very rarely use headphones. I could do the gain right here on the front. That was no problem. I liked it. But there was one major problem, and that was there was this weird digital glitch sound that would come through my microphone channel whenever I was in a project with more than just a handful of plugins. In fact, before I even try to explain this, let me just play the video for you. I originally sent this to Waves technical support because I thought it was a Waves problem. Turns out it wasn't, but take a look at this video. All right, so check this out. You'll probably hear a glitch right away. All I have to do is click back and forth. And it creates that weird glitchy sound. So yeah, that was annoying. And if you've been with me since the early days of the channel, you can hear that glitch in some of the videos because it was coming right through the microphone channel. So if I would do things like start a song while I was finishing talking, you could hear the glitch in there. Stopping a song would do it. Just clicking around would do it for unknown reasons. Now, I eventually did do a workaround, and I changed the inputs on my interface. So instead of my mic being in channel 1, it was in channel 2, and the bass in channel 2 instead of, or in channel 1 instead of channel 2. So what happened there was the digital glitch went through my bass channel, which is almost never an issue because I was never actually playing bass and like clicking around a Reaper at the same time because I only have 2 hands. And yeah. So that was annoying. The problem with switching them around, I mean, that was a good workaround because I didn't have to worry about it. However, I also use this same PC and workstation area for my day job, which is IT engineer, and I'm on this thing 8 to 12 hours a day outside of all my fun music stuff that I do. And there were some programs that didn't work with the mic. We used Slack at work, we used a couple other, and the microphone would not work no matter what I did. I did some testing, moving the microphone back to channel 1. It would pick it up just fine. I didn't want to like switch microphones back and forth for using it between work and not work. I just wanted something I could set and forget. So I did try to reach out to Steinberg, and probably half a dozen times over a couple of years. The only time I ever got a reply was from their automated system once when I did fill out a form online. I tried to reply back saying, hey, I haven't gotten a reply back. What can we do about this? Help. And just never got a reply. Now, they did come out with a new version of their driver. I think it was this year, early January or February. That actually made things worse. There were weird bugs in going in and out of Reaper and sound like halting on certain programs and stuff like that. I just said, you know what? It's time to cut this thing's head off. It served me well. Maybe in the future I can find another use for it, on my laptop or remote recording or something like that. But for now, it's time to move on. So yeah, like I said, I liked the layout of the Steinberg, probably more because I got used to it. I mean, anytime you have a new piece of electronics, it's going to be different than what you had before, whether it's interface or computer OS or car stereo or any of these number of things, home theater, anything like that. You just get used to it after a while. So let's go over some of the really, really, really quick features on this Evo. Again, there's 2 inputs. I have a microphone in number 1. I have my bass in number 2 on the front. There's another 6 in the back. I do have one for my Countryman DI for bass that's back there. It may or may not be plugged in at this time. You have buttons for all of the different inputs. You can see number 1, I have my input gain. Number 2, I have my input gain. You can always also have a button for phantom power. This 48 volt is lit up. Both my tone hammer DI and my microphone require phantom power. There's a button for guitar or instrument or what they call a high Z interface. I don't use that because I am using a DI, and I found on the 3rd channel when I plug directly into the interface, because I am using Countryman DI, I don't need that either. If you have like either a really high or a really low gain guitar, that might help turning that button on. This green button we'll get to in a second, but output, it's a simple dial. I can go back and forth between the main or the 2 headphone inputs, and that's really about it. I have one big dial here that I can change volume on. Now, one thing I did notice, the volumes are really, really weird as far as level goes. Like if I turn this down to 30, I can barely hear anything coming out of my speakers. If I turn it up to 48, the difference between 48 and 50 is huge. And then if I go up to like 55, it's going to be just room filling. And if I need to go up to like 60 or 70, it could hurt me or my neighbors. But, my neighbors listen to good music, whether they like it or not. So those are just some quick features of the interface. Let's head over to Reaper, and first thing I'll show you is how it fixed the glitch. All right, here we are on Reaper. This is the same project from that video. It may not be the same version, but it is the same song. As you can tell, there is nothing. It is silent. If I play and I stop, there's no extra noise. There's no weird digital glitches, clicks, pops, any of that stuff. It's great. The other issue I had, you will notice this definitely in some of my videos, is that in rendering a song or a file out, it would cut audio out at the end of the render for like a second and a half or 2 seconds. Doesn't seem very long, but like if I were telling the start of a joke and then my audio cut out, wrecked him and nearly killed him. You'd never know what the joke is about. So let's try that. I'm just going to make a small selection here. I go up to render. We'll put this as time selection. We'll put this in just a directory. We'll put it to MP3 and hit render. And it's rendering, and you can hear my voice is just fine. And at the end, it's going to be just fine as well. And yeah, no glitches, no issues there. I can actually render in a video and not have to worry about like either stopping or just having, you know, my voice randomly glitch out for at the last second. So those are the two main problems I had with the Steinberg, and the Audient fixed those two. So as far as I'm concerned, I would have paid more to have those problems resolved, because there were just major inconveniences, and actually as far as work goes, it was actually causing a problem, and I had to do weird things like calling on my cell phone and things like that. So really happy with the fact that fixed that problem. So the next thing is the Smartgain feature. Now you will notice in any of the reviews, that's all they talk about is Evo or Audient Smartgain. It's essentially this green button over here on the interface. You press it, you talk or play or whatever in your inputs, and it automatically determines the gain of what that microphone or instrument or input should be. So let me demo this real quick. I just have a blank project. I have one track. I have a record arm. You'll see it's about -18 dB. I'll put a card or a playlist or something up here for my gain staging, and I go in a little bit of why you want -18 dB as your target level. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to start the Smartgain process. It's going to cut out my audio for a second, because it essentially zeroes it out and then it brings it up and it figures it out. At some point it'll come back on. I'll just babble. You won't know what I'm talking about. I won't know what I'm talking about. So let's see what happens. So you hit the green button. It asks you to select the channels. Now, if I were doing drums, I could do all 8 of these and then just have the drummer play his entire kit, and it will get things, levels from all of his drums and the overheads and everything. You won't have to sit there and having the drummer, and hit the snare 400 times so you can get the levels set. So I'm going to choose just input 1 here. I'm going to hit this green button. I'm going to go back. I will be back in just a second. But you guys can't really hear me. And actually now you probably can hear me, because Smartgain was successful. Now, if we go back to the interface, you can see it put input at 27. I was turned a little bit. I actually like the input at 25, so I'm just going to adjust that a little bit. But the difference between 25 and 27 isn't really a big deal. Actually, when I first did it, it went down to 20. I was probably not as excited as I am right now. I don't know why I'm this excited, because behind the scenes footage from Dad. This is the 3rd time I have shot this video, because I had problems with OBS the first 2 times where it didn't pick up anything from my microphone and I didn't realize it. I had on the same recording, so I just put it like a big pause in the middle and I said, oh, I didn't do that right. Let's start over. What are you gonna do? One thing I want to point out, and if you have an Audient interface and you've run into this before, you think you have a bad interface. So I went through and I did the Smartgain. And what I thought was, because it took so long, I mean, when I did it right now, it was only, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. The first time I ran it was more like 30, but I didn't know that. So I started talking into the mic or playing bass or whatever I was doing, and then I was like, I must have to hit the button again. So I hit the button again. What it does there is it wipes out all of your input gains on all of your channels. So I thought I either had a broken interface, or the driver was dodgy, or Windows glitch or something, or a Reaper problem or whatever. I spent a couple hours troubleshooting it, couldn't figure it out. Actually had to go back to the Steinberg interface for a day. Came back that night, figured let's just start with the Smartgain all over again, like factory reset kind of thing. And sure enough, I just kept talking and it worked. So if you run into that issue, it is not a problem with the driver or the interface itself. It's just how it's designed. You just got to keep talking until it figures out the levels. Because especially the voice, you could see the peaks all over the place. In fact, stay tuned to my video on compression, where we kind of talk about that and how to fix that with compression. So that is not a bug. Just watch out for that feature if you happen to do it. Smartgain is great. You want to tweak it a little bit if you need to, but for the most part, you should be able to set it and forget it. So what kind of issues have I had with this thing? There have been a couple. I mentioned the volume knob being like kind of weird as far as getting used to it. I also noticed that because if you notice my volume was at 50, if you notice on the Steinberg, it was only at like 10 o'clock or so, maybe 40 as opposed to 50, maybe 35. I thought the Steinberg had a much higher output than the Audient. It's not a big deal because I'm still at 50 out of 100. So if I need to turn it up, I can. I just happen to notice that. I don't know why, different electronics, different whatever. But I did notice that, plugged into my Atom audio speakers here, because what else would I use? That the output is a little bit lower and I just had to plug it. But 50 is a nice round number. I kind of like numbers. In fact, with the input gain, I kind of like to know what numbers I'm at, whereas these dials on the Steinberg, I just kind of have to guess. And if I go between different bases that have vastly different inputs, I have to change it and make sure I'm doing it this way. I can just either remember what the number was from base to base or just run the Smartgain and let it take care of itself. I did run into a couple of times. In fact, today it happened again. I was going to say 2 or 3 times. Like if I get a power surge, and this thing is on a UPS. So my internet, my PCs, they're all on UPSs. So if I lose power, I still have a couple minutes to be able to recover from that. Today we had a power glitch for 3 seconds maybe. And I came down here and I noticed this was all locked up. What I had to do is I had to go unplug the power from the back and plug it back in. There was no way I could reset it. I did not try undoing the USB because I couldn't even do a knob on the front of it to change like the gain or anything like this. This wasn't doing anything at all. It was just stuck there and the meters were stuck on, which was weird. I've had that happen 2 or 3 times. I did have it happen once during the day, not on a power glitch at all, just working on a Zoom call. And all of a sudden I look over and something flashed weird. I tried to adjust the output and nothing happened. Now, I still had sound and my microphone still worked. So all I had to do was wait till I was off the call and, reboot and do that. But I have run into that. I don't know if that's an issue. Maybe they can fix in firmware. Seems like it may be a little sensitive to something that happens. It may be power related. It may not be. But I've had that happen a couple times. But again, it hasn't happened in the middle of a session that's affected anything, so it hasn't been a big deal right now. The other thing it comes with is this mixer app. This is the Audient EVO mixer software. Everything you can do on the front of the interface, you can do in this software. I prefer doing most things on the interface itself. Like you can set your gain, you can set your 48 volt, your instrument gain, left and right panning, things like that. This is where you select your direct monitoring. So I have my microphone all the way off because I don't want to hear it through my speakers because I hear myself through my head and I don't need to hear it through that. If I'm recording someone on vocals and I want them to be able to hear through their headphones or whatever, I would want to turn this up so that they can hear what's going on. You'll notice channel 2 here is for my bass. I have the input gain all the way up. That was one of the other things that I noticed, and I think it has to do with the same thing as the output gain. The input just isn't, or what's outputting through direct monitoring isn't as loud as it was on the Steinberg. So I have to put this up at 6 dB, and then I have to crank my interface up to be able to hear it and turn everything down. I wish I had better control over this. I wish I could go up another bunch just so I could hear myself, or I could put a gain plugin or whatever on it. I have to keep the actual gain pretty low because I have basses that are pretty hot, especially this one back here, my Blueson. I have to put the input gain at like 3 or 4 in order for it to not clip and for it to get enough headroom in recordings. So that's one thing I wish I could do differently. You could set up, there's a loopback feature. I'm going to look into that soon because right now I'm using Restream to go into OBS. In fact, there's a card up here on how I do my OBS and Restream setup. But for the most part, mixer software is straightforward. I can also go into choose my sample rate, which is 48K, and my buffer size, which I tend to leave it at 128 because I don't need to have anything faster for direct monitoring because I'm usually recording bass with no effects, or if the effects are on, it's through my pedal board, and I don't use amp sims. That's in a future video at some point. So that is the mixing software, not much to it, pretty straightforward. And then the last thing I kind of teased it earlier about these Neve preamps on the Steinberg. I am hesitant to say if they're doing anything. There's a long-standing debate on whether interfaces or preamps and things like that really, really help with your signal. I'm going to venture to say almost any interface that you can buy today in the $100 to $700 range is going to have preamps that are going to sound very, very similar. Now, to prove this, what I did, you have to trust me on this. I recorded these right in the middle of my whole basement flood and disaster issues. In fact, there's a card up here, the state of the basement. I am in a much better shape now. Whole family has recovered from COVID. The basement's back to almost normal. New carpeting. My pool table room is set up, well. In fact, I'll put a picture up here because I like to brag about that room because it's cool looking. But I did record the bass on the Audient during that time because I had no idea when I was going to get back to it. I was going to record it live here, but I have this cell phone camera over here, and trying to get the bass in this and not knocking it over is going to be more agility than Dad has in his old age. So before I start, I want to normalize all these tracks just so they're at the same volume level. I could do it by ear, or watching the meters, but I'd rather have the meters. They're a great band, by the way. I'd rather do it by something more not automated, but more exact. So if I right click and drag on all these audio files, go up to Actions, choose Show Action List, and type Normalize. If you have the SWS pack installed, which you should, if you don't, research SWS extensions in Reaper and get those installed. There's this Xenakios, and whatever. Normalize selected tracks to dB value. For this, I'm going to choose -6. It'll both turn the volume up a little, and it'll get all the waveforms kind of evened out. And because I have everything selected, it's going to do all of them at the same time. So that said, these volumes should match a little bit better. And let's just start playing these things. So for starters, I am using the Blue Zon, and this is on the Steinberg. This is kind of like a straight ahead rock type riff, just something I came up with at the top of my head. And now the Audient. And now I'm going to go back and forth between it without talking. You can see which one's on the screen. I may put something on the screen and post as well, depending on how much effort I want to put into this. Let me know if you can hear any differences. I don't hear anything different. Let's move on to the next one. Next one is my Brown Zon, which is hiding behind me somewhere in the background. It is a jazz bass style, and this is more of a slap funk riff. Steinberg first. And the Audient. Timing issues aside, let's go back and forth between the two. Maybe the Audient is just like 1 dB on a high shelf brighter than the other one. It could also be that it was a couple weeks between when I recorded these, but I really can't tell a difference. Let's listen to the last one. This is my P bass, just kind of a standard P bass type riff, I guess. Steinberg first. in Audient. Again, maybe a little bit brighter. Let's go back and forth between the two. So yeah, really no difference between the two as far as I could tell. Again, maybe just the slightest bit brighter on the Audient, which is never a bad thing. But I mean, I could take both of these files, drop them into a mix, don't change any EQ, and you wouldn't even be able to tell. It wouldn't even make a difference. All right, so that is it. That is my Audient EVO 16 versus my Steinberg UR-RT4 interface. Not really a shootout, but just a kind of a comparison. Explains why I went from the Steinberg to the Audient. Overall, I'm loving the interface. I haven't lost anything despite buying a cheaper interface. I mean, when in the world do you ever upgrade and spend less money? It's certainly not in my lifetime. It's always you upgrade and you're spending more and more and more and more every time. But I'm really happy with this purchase. Really happy I got it. You know, complaints about it. It's bigger, it takes up more desk space, but it doesn't have vents on the top, so I can put stuff on it, like my tone hammer or my Countryman, or when I brought out my X-Touch 1 control surface interface thing, that could go on top of it. Other than that, really no complaints. A couple things I think maybe a driver or firmware could fix with the power thing that I talked about earlier, but overall, very happy with it. I definitely recommend it. It's currently $4.99 US, maybe hard to find. They're really popular, but it's going to be my interface going forward for the foreseeable future until it does something to irritate me and I need to cut its head off. So again, I mentioned that trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here. I have a little over a month to do it by the end of the year. Otherwise, I mean, nothing will happen. It'll be January and I won't have it. But I'd really kind of like to do it. That's one of my goals. I mentioned it in my motivation video that I'll link above to take a look at that from last week, and give me a chance to get there. So like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube hokey pokey things. If you get one of your friends to subscribe to the channel just for no reason, they can turn notifications off. They never have to watch any of my videos, although that would really kind of be cool if they did. That helps in the watch hours and all that kind of stuff. But until next time, have yourselves an amazing until next video time period or something. See ya. Couldn't do that with the Steinberg. I gotta sample that into a video somewhere. Note to self, sample that cool sound into a recording and put it in a song.